This Coke's gone bad.
Well, let's get to it. Okay, welcome back to the garage, everybody. Here we are, finally getting on something I should have done a long time ago, at least started. 250R. It's been sitting here forever. You guys have seen it since last year. The last round of works, I picked it up from Jason. His dad brought it all the way down from Pennsylvania. I'd like to thank Terry, Jason's cousin, so much for getting this thing out to us. If you guys don't know the backstory on it, last year, me and Jason and Justin and a bunch of other guys, we took on Vegas to Reno. And for that race, we decided to put on a fundraiser for Race to Race 22, veteran suicide charity, and raise a bunch of money for it, which we did. And we completed the race. We took second place in Expert. You know, we were ecstatic about that, and we got a lot of donations. We were even happier about that. But at the end of it all, Terry, Jason's cousin, he hits us up and says, "Hey man, I didn't have any money to donate, but how would you guys like a 250R?" We said, "Man, we would love to have one. How much?" And he just replied, "You can have it." So somehow, some way, we were able to get this thing from Terry free of charge for us to build as a team bike. And so here I am, finally digging into this thing. Thank you so much, Terry. I can't wait to get this thing blown apart and rebuilt. Now, it did come with a few problems, but nothing we can't handle. So, without further ado, let me take you around the thing and show you what I'm talking about. As I dive into this thing for the next day or two, I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to rip this thing down, but you guys are going to notice that there is a lot going on in this garage. All right, over here we have Vegas to Reno build. This is Project Nomad over here. We got the son's quad, we got the wife's quad, we've got this thing, the Coolster, which is new. Mine over there, it's dirty. I've got all kinds of parts just laying here. I even have all of our tires, as you can see over there. We've got all our tires back. I took them out, got them, actually I had all our blocks installed out at Glen Helen. I've got all kinds of stuff going on, so you guys are gonna have to forgive me for some of that. But that's one of the main reasons I'm also doing this now. I've got to clear some space so I can get Project Nomad over here. I can send this frame out. We can get it checked out by Lone Star Racing up there in Mesa. They can tell me if the frame's okay. We can hack some of the stuff that's on there off that we don't need. And then I can sell the engine. I'm going to sell some other parts. We're going to part some of this stuff out and try to keep some of it. And then that will clear some space so I can put Project Nomad over here and finish it. The XR is not mine. That's a friend of mine. We were out riding the other day. You could see he went down a couple times. We were out riding some trails that he hasn't seen yet, but ended up breaking his clutch cover, tipping it over on a rock. So I'm just going to replace his clutch for him. He already ordered the parts, so that'll be done and out of here pretty quick. But back to the main focus. Here is the 1986 250R Hybrid. Now this thing got to me in pretty rough shape. It's been sitting for a long time. No complaints here, because we kind of knew it's been sitting for about 15 years on a shelf, and it's been neglected. You know, it just hasn't been used anymore. So it's time to pull this thing apart and take a look at it and get it rebuilt the way that we want to rebuild it. So, hybrid. For those of you who aren't familiar with what a hybrid is, I'm sure many of you are. A lot of you guys have seen these things. They got really popular when 250Rs were done being made and four-stroke dirt bikes were coming out. And I think the YZ426 was one of the first popular hybrids. I'm sure there's plenty more. A lot of you guys will probably jump in the comments and tell me about it, but they got really popular when 250Rs weren't being produced, but you could use the 250R geometry and throw a four-stroke engine in there and make really good power with it and go out racing and get the power you wanted with the chassis you want, all kinds of custom stuff going on. And I've seen things like YZ426s when they were put in there. I've seen 350Xs put in there. TC Racing used to do the 350X engine in there, and you get that four-stroke grunt and all kinds of cool stuff. So this one in particular, though, this has a Husaberg 501 dirt bike engine. I think this is a first gen, second gen. I think it's a 97 to 2001 generation Husaberg 501. It's a 6-speed transmission. It's massive. It's really, honestly, it's not that big for being a 501. It's just a big bore in there. But it has a dual exhaust. I guess these came with dual exhaust, but they were a 2-into-1 from the factory. This, however, has had this custom, we'll call it custom exhaust put on there. Kind of booger welded together, something that had to just be made to work. And it's, yeah, it's taking its toll on these nice full bore plastics. You can see the cans back there are about as, it looks like somebody cut a bat apart and then stuffed some packing in there and put a spout on it. And if you come up to the front here, you'll notice a starter. This was an electric start, but it was kind of rigged up with a homemade starter system. It looks like, you know, one of those start buttons you can go and get at AutoZone and screw into the plastics, which they did. They cut a hole. There's not a whole lot I can do about the holes, no pun intended. But yeah, that kind of sucks. I have some holes cut in the plastics, but we'll move on. The main reason we want to get rid of the engine, we want to tear it out of there, we actually want to go back to a 2-stroke. We're thinking, if we can find one, a KTM like 300 XC engine, which would be great, or if we could find a newer YZ250 or a CR250 would be cool. However, we were thinking something with E-Start on it, which the 300s do, and some TPI. Still have to mix the fuel. I think it's TBI now on the new KTM 300s. But good 2-stroke power, light engine, and we'll still mix gas. Still make all the cool 2-stroke sounds. Biggest reason why we want to get rid of the 501. Number one reason is it's old. It's hard to find parts for these things. These 501s, they don't just throw them around anymore. And two, the other reason we want to get rid of it is it's heavy. It's just really heavy compared to putting a 2-stroke back in there. And these 250R frames, for anybody that knows about them, aren't the strongest. And these big 4-strokes have a tendency to rattle these things and crack them. So we want to take that out and put a lighter engine back in, go back to 2-stroke. They make plenty of power, plus kind of take it back to its roots. However, still be a hybrid. We don't want to go back to a 250R engine. We're thinking a E-Start 300 would be just about the bee's knees for this thing. So then if you come up here, guys, look up on top, we got the IMS oversized tank. Terry made sure he put that on there, give that to us. We also have full bore plastics. I don't know about anybody else, but I haven't been able to talk to Full Bore Plastics. I haven't been able to call them, email them, get any messages back. I'm pretty sure they're out of business. It seems like that's kind of a hot topic. Nobody's really sure because nobody gets an answer, but it sounds like they're not making plastics anymore, which sucks because Full Bore Plastics were really nice, so Meyer's pretty much the only way to go now. But these plastics really aren't that bad. Once you blow the dust off it, these plastics are actually in pretty good shape underneath the graphics and things on there. I started peeling some of those up, and the plastics actually look like they're good. They're still pretty dark. They still have that nice rich black. Still pretty shiny. I think what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to buff these things out. Now, I've already kind of practiced a couple times using some glaze and stuff like that. I'm going to try buffing most of the plastics out and sanding down the rough spots. I'll have to get better at wet sanding and things like that, but try to buff them out as best I can. Not much I can do about the holes. The other option is we know where there's some more plastics, we may get a different color plastics. Not sure yet what color we're going to go with, but it's definitely not going to be a white frame. I think we're going to change that up. But that is a Burgard stem that's in rough shape, unfortunately. Burgard stems are pretty popular. This one used to be pretty chromed out, but most of that chrome is gone now. It's just rusty. So that's going to go. Got some old ASV levers that have been faded over the years and rusted, and this master cylinder is pretty much completely dried out. It's probably I'm willing to bet that plunger is dust in there. So that'll have to get fixed or changed out. Gonna get rid of these bars, get rid of the levers, and then, yeah, try to use these plastics. You can see it had these old K&K custom ATV graphics. They were getting pretty crusty, so they're getting peeled up. But as you guys can see, underneath, the plastics look pretty good, so I'm going to try to salvage these as best I can. The seat, however, that seat cover's got to go. It's flaking apart. Not sure how good the foam is. It doesn't feel too bad. The seat pan is pretty good, so I'm going to keep that. All right, now as you come back here, these 250Rs are kind of interesting. You can see the latch here, latch right underneath. You actually have to pull this thing off to the side, and then the whole seat comes up. At least that still works. Let's pull that off. I need to make some room around here. The subframe doesn't look all bent up, so that's not too bad. In the rear here, it looks like we have a Showa rear shock remote reservoir. So we're gonna take this and I think we're gonna rebuild this one. We're gonna keep the linkage. We wanna keep that. We're gonna keep the swing arm. The axle is gonna get switched out. But as you see here, something looks pretty off, doesn't it? Yep. That's right. The brake is on the left side, sprocket's on the right. That's another weird thing about the Husaberg. The sprocket's on the right side, so your drive is over here. Basically, it makes everything flip. So we would have to flip everything. You can see the carrier's flipped around. I think it all works just fine, but we want to take all this and revert it back. So that's another reason we want to get rid of that Husaberg. It's just kind of a weird thing. It's cool, but we just want to deal with simplicity a little bit here. Now, as we come up front, you'll see we got these Jansen arms here. I think I'm gonna try to find a set of Ligers for this thing. I'd like to put a set of Ligers arms on here. Just one, for the nostalgia, I guess. Two, I know Ligers is good. And three, it just looks sweet, having Ligers on the front of a 250R. But these Jansens aren't bad. I think we're just gonna sell them off. Then down here, you'll see, got a nice set of slightly bent OEM wheels, which is sad. They would have been in good shape in here. They're in good shape in there. But up here, they're really chewed up and somebody hit something pretty hard right there. It's unfortunate. That's pretty much it. All right, I had to stop for a sec and show you guys something. These grips obviously are trash. They've been eaten away by God knows what, sunshine, bugs, whatever. These grips are gone. However, underneath them, what I found, it's like the world's largest amount of grip glue. You guys see that? It's either grip glue or epoxy, but God, there's a lot of it on there. So yeah, these obviously gotta go. Okay, well, that's finally done. Finally stripped that thing down after a long time of just sitting here and staring at me and collecting dust. But there was a lot of stuff on there that wasn't supposed to be there, stuff that was added afterwards. I'm sure way back in the day, this thing was super cool, very fast, one of a kind, but it's just become dated and sat for too long and been too neglected. But you can see there was all kinds of stuff welded to it that didn't need to be there, like reservoir mounts up front. There's a bracket that's welded in down on the bottom, I'm assuming for steering stabilizer, because I think there's a flag on the Burgard stem that I have that had the steering stabilizer that would bolt to it. There's also a battery tray that's welded down the bottom with some bolts welded in so that they could clamp the battery down for the electric start that was on the bike motor. There was some hacking going on and some re-welding of an engine mount down at the bottom. And when I pulled the bolt out of that, which was just this tiny little bolt holding that 501 to that frame, it's just some hard, I mean, somebody was fabricating it, but someone went and got some grade 8 hardware and then filed one side of it down so that it would slide past the frame rail on there. And it was loosely put in there. Again, Terry put a lot of the stuff together by hand real quick when he was sending it down to us, so he left a lot of things loose. Thank you, Terry, very much for this thing. And thank you for leaving a lot of those bolts loose, because that made my life a lot easier. There was a lot of rust on here. And then in the back, you guys could see there was a broken tab, or a broken stud for the rear master cylinder. And then of course there's all kinds of rotten grommets everywhere and things like that. So I think I'm going to sell the engine off. Someone can use that. Front wheels, don't need those, but we do have a swing arm, we have shocks, we have linkage, we have plastics, we have a fuel tank, we have a good radiator. I'm actually going to be able to straighten that radiator out, clean it, and then repaint it and use that again. But thanks to Terry for leaving all the bolts loose, and also thank you Blood Racing for the Pro Series penetrating oil, because that also helped me get a few things off, and it worked quick, thank God, because there were a few things that were seized on there pretty bad. As you saw, the brake pedal hose that down with quite a bit of that penetrating oil, and it seemed to work pretty well. But for now, let's get this thing off of here, and now we can put Project Nomad on the chopping table and start putting it together. .250R cleared out, 450R on the operating table. Hope you guys liked it. Hope you stick around for more of the other stuff. Again, that 250R isn't completely done. We still got some ideas. Just gonna have to kick that can down the road a little bit. Now it's on to Project Nomad from Vegas to Reno.